We waited 10 years for this? Hello everyone, and welcome to my much delayed review of Men in Black 3, directed once again by Barry Sonnenfeld and starring Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones and Josh Brolin. So, Men in Black 3, released a whopping 10 years after the second movie. 10 years! Released in 2012. My goodness me. Okay. So, I do apologise for the delay with this review. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to record this review before I went on holiday. I'm now back from holiday and reviewing this movie. You may notice I've changed a little bit of my shelf. I've reorganised it a little bit, and now BB-8 is up there instead of at the top there. So, yeah, just a little thing, just to, you know, have a nice change of background. Anyway, Men in Black 3. So, the story is that basically it's set some time after the second movie. Probably about 10 years after the second one, to be fair. Something happens to Agent K, and he is then rendered non-existent. He is erased from time, and Will Smith's Agent J has to travel back in time in order to basically fix a major fixed point in time by by killing Boris the Animal, who's this assassin who's out to kill Agent K for some reason, and that's it. And you know, Jay has to meet up with the young Agent K, played by Josh Brolin, and together they have to go down, track down Boris the Animal, and place some kind of object in this rocket, and that's it. That's Men in Black 3. Men in Black 3. To the credit of this film, it is an improvement over the second one, but that ain't saying very much for me. I have to confess, guys, I've only seen this movie, well, I've seen it twice now. I mean, the first time I saw this film, I saw it in the cinema about 5 years ago when it came out. Back then I kind of didn't mind it. I mean, now, rewatching it, I don't care for this movie. I just don't give a fuck. I mean, you know, I watched it completely bored out of my fucking mind. Despite the fact that this movie has a slightly intriguing concept of time travel, it's boring. That's the biggest complaint I can say about Men in Black 3, that it's just boring. And I found myself struggling to get through it. I found the pacing for this movie to be god-awful. It pretty much drags on for the entirety of its runtime, and you know, it's a complete slog to sit through. I'm not saying it's completely terrible, but it's very weak. It's a very weak ending to this trilogy. But it is better than the second one, so I guess that is something to be said. It's not as mind-numbingly dumb or ridiculous as the second, but it's still convoluted. There's many bad ideas that are thrown in here. I just don't think this movie hangs together at all. There's no dramatic weight to it. It's another Men in Black movie. I mean, I will say, however, there is actually a rather nice twist at the very end of the movie, which kind of gives some emotional depth to the character of Agent J. I won't reveal it in case you haven't seen the film, but it's actually a very lovely gesture, and it is something that connects the two agents together even more closely. So I like that, but it doesn't make up for the rest of the movie. It's 1 hour 45 minutes, and it feels so much longer. God, it just goes on and on. It's just boring. It's completely fucking boring. And you know, 5 years after, like half a decade after this movie's released, I still don't care for it. I've got to be honest. It's probably a little bit worse than I remember. Which is a shame. I just think Barry Sonnenfeld didn't really know what to do with this movie. I mean, it's a very cliched movie, you know, throwing the idea of the time travel in there doesn't really work. I mean, it's kind of cool to see, when he's jumping off the building and then he's pressing the button and he's going through all the various stages of time. I mean, it's visually quite nice, I guess. I mean, this movie is actually probably the most visually pleasing of the trilogy, probably because it's got the most updated visual effects. Because the first movie came out in 1997 and the second one in 2002. So in 10 years / 15 years, the effects would have naturally improved anyway. I just think the story becomes very convoluted. That's another problem. When you have a movie that centers around time travel, naturally there are things that are going to get confusing. Some things they manage to get around okay, but other aspects I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the hell does Boris the Animal have against Agent K? I never understood his motivation. And, the characters. We'll go over the characters. Agent J. I mean, Will Smith, I'm glad to say he's very good. He gives a very good performance. He's doing less of the comedy that he did in the first two. He's a bit more serious in this film, actually. Which is good. He's more straight to the point. He's on a mission, and the film, he's really the main protagonist in this film, and he does a good job selling the urgency of the situation. I have to say though, I mean, Tommy Lee Jones as Agent K, he's barely in the film. He's only in the film for about 10 minutes, which is very disappointing. He's in he's in the first 20 minutes, and then he turns up at the end. I mean, I know the film's not necessarily about him, although it kind of is. Essentially, it's not about old Agent K. He looks a bit rough in this movie, actually. He looks really quite rough. Yeah, I would have liked to have seen him in a little bit more, to be honest. I thought they kind of wasted him. However, to make up for this, we have Josh Brolin playing the young Agent K. And Josh Brolin is actually fantastic in this movie. He gives a very good performance. Even though it is basically an impression of Tommy Lee Jones as Agent K, it is still actually very convincing, and you do actually believe, yeah, this is the same guy. I mean, he looks a little bit different in the face, but still, it's a different guy. It's a different guy playing the same guy. It's a very good impersonation. I have to say, one thing I did like about this movie was the period setting. For most of this movie, it's set in 1969, and it's interesting to see the world of Men in Black literally go back in time to another time period. I mean, for one thing, it's cool to see just how things are. Like, when Jay gets taken by the young Agent K to the MIB headquarters, and we see how it looks very different compared to the modern day version, and he's about to be put into the deneuralizer, and it's a big old chunky thing, and it's very old. And we also see young Agent K's, non-wireless, like his cable neuralizer, which is kind of funny. So in that sense, it's kind of funny, and interesting to see how the comparisons between the two time periods. And I'm just sorry, guys. I just don't think this is a very fun movie. I mean, I try to enjoy it as a fun romp, but I just can't. There's just too much wandering around and talking. They don't make as much of the urgency in the situation. This movie doesn't raise the stakes like it should do. I mean, Boris the Animal is a terrible villain. What the fuck? What the freaking fuck is this character? I mean, I would actually go so far as to say that Boris the Animal is the Jar Jar Binks of the Men in Black trilogy. He is so annoying! I mean, he's just going around like going, oh, it's just Boris. We'll agree to disagree. Shut the fuck up! Oh, it just pissed me off. I mean, the actor, what the hell? His performance is so strange. That's the best way I can describe it. It's strange, and I don't know what the fuck Barry Sonnenfeld was on. And the opening scene when his girlfriend goes to rescue him, who's actually played by Nicole Scherzinger in a brief cameo, and he's and he's just like, "Sorry, darling, did enjoy the cake." And his voice is just annoying and strange. Oh my god. And you know, he keeps repeating the same lines. You know, "Oh, it's just Boris will agree to disagree," and just shut this guy up, really, because he is so annoying. Oh my god. I mean, even Selena was a better villain than him. Fuck me. Also, Rip Torn is not in this movie. Zed is deceased. Rip Torn sadly passed away way before this movie came out, so they had to basically, you know, pay their respects to him. And his replacement is Emma Thompson. Yes, a very famous actress slash writer. I like Emma Thompson very much. She's a very, very good actress. I love her as Nanny McPhee. I must review those movies one day. I really like her in the new Beauty and the Beast movie as Mrs. Potts. She's done all the Jane Austen stuff like the Sense and Sensibility. She's been in a lot. She's been in a lot. I can't remember anything else offhand. In Harry Potter, she was in Harry Potter as Professor Trelawney. In this movie, she's okay. She doesn't get much to do. She plays Agent O. And Alice Eve plays the younger Agent O from the 60s. I mean, Alice Eve is an attractive woman. I mean, those of you who've seen Star Trek Into Darkness will remember Alice Eve for the underwear scene. And you know, she's equally as attractive here, so that's nice. So they're two interesting versions of the same character. The only other character worth mentioning is Griffin. Griffin is actually quite a nice character. I like him. He's very charming. His voice is very reminiscent of Michael Cera. I don't know if that's just me, but I get that impression. He's a very charming character. He doesn't really appear very much, but he can see into the future, and I think that's a really cool concept. And I like how he basically is used as a foreshadowing tool. Like when Jay says to him, "What did you see?" and he says, "Oh, you know, I showed him how important you two are," and you know, obviously that leads into the twist at the end of the movie. I do think the climax is all right, I guess. I mean, like I said, the twist at the end kind of, at least there is some kind of finality to this. There is some sense of heart towards this movie. But just overall, this movie has nothing going for it. It's dull. It's dull. That's the biggest criticism I have with it. I just couldn't get into it. Even though it is, as a film, it's better than the second movie. For me, the first movie will always stand strong, and the first movie is indeed the best movie of this trilogy. It's not perfect by any means, but it's certainly much more fun. And in my opinion, you didn't even need the sequels. They were completely unnecessary. And I hope that they don't make any more, because I don't think there's any more story to tell in this. And again, the music score is good. It's the same old theme from the first two. The dun 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 dun. I like all that. I mean, from a production design standpoint, it looks good, and it does look very reminiscent of the first two. So it does feel like it belongs in the world of Men in Black, which is good. But just waiting 10 years for this, you might as well not have bothered. You may as well just not have bothered. Barry Sonnenfeld's direction is poor. He can't hang this together. And it's a shame. I really think a new director would have enhanced this. Barry Sonnenfeld should have just directed the first one, and the sequel should have been directed by somebody else. Or maybe they should have had a different director for each film to keep it fresh. It's sad that Steven Spielberg has executively produced this. He funded this. But, oh well, that's what we get. Yeah, there's no excitement to this movie. So, yeah, because of the poor storytelling, the poor structure of it, it's just poorly made. I'm going to rate Men in Black 3 a 4 out of 10.
Let's excuse me, baby. No, yeah, you baby. Back, oh, you groovy, baby. In, let's make a movie, baby. Time, excuse me, baby. Let's, yeah, you baby. Go, oh, you groovy, baby. Back, let's make a movie, baby. Time.
worldwide, Agent A, reporting live from Cape Canaveral.
Yep, it's not great at all, but it's not completely terrible. Like I said, there are some things that I like. So, that's it, guys. That's my review of the Men in Black trilogy. Done. Vamoose. Finished. Yeah, I don't think I'll be keeping this in my collection. If I actually do end up buying Men in Black again, I will buy the first one and just stick with that. I don't think the sequels are worth watching anymore. What do you think of the Men in Black trilogy? What's your favourite movie of the Men in Black trilogy? Please put your comments down below, let me know. If I were to rank the movies, well, quite obviously, number 3, I would put Men in Black 2, number 2, Men in Black 3, and number 1, the first one, Men in Black. So, that's it. And I've enjoyed watching and reviewing these movies, well, for the most part. So yeah, stay tuned for more reviews. I'm going to be reviewing Kingsman Secret Service, and also the How to Train Your Dragon movies, as requested by the Dragon Critic, otherwise known as Lee. So, thank you guys all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. Timeless11. See ya.